Hi, my name is Ashley Keenan. I'm an English instructor and a performer. Have you ever struggled to read aloud, to give speeches, to engage an audience, or even just be understood by your friends? Well, this course is going to help solve all of those problems. We're going to be covering elocution training. Elocution training is the skill of clear and expressive speech, especially of distinct pronunciation and articulation. This course is going to cover projection, getting your voice to your audience, inflection, making your tone and message clear, clarity and speed, making sure that you have good pacing and that each word is clearly articulated. We'll also provide tips and tricks to boost your public speaking skills and to help reduce your accent. Alright, the first assignment is to share your goals with the class. What would you like to accomplish by the end of this course? Do you have any fears when it comes to public speaking? Share them with us below, and we can try to troubleshoot and help each other become better public speakers. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I look forward to working with you all. Welcome back. Today we're going to be discussing inflection. Inflection is the modulation of intonation or pitch in the voice. It has a lot of synonyms, for example, stress, cadence, rhythm, accent, intonation, pitch, and so on. Let's begin by looking at pitch. You may have noticed in your day-to-day conversations that a rising pitch indicates a question, whereas a falling pitch indicates certainty, a statement, or something that is true. The word right is a really interesting example of this. So you may hear people say, I know, right? Or you're definitely right. Or is she right about that? This one is a really interesting example of how the intonation of rising pitches and falling pitches can shape the meaning of a word or a phrase. Here's a really interesting example. This is from Russell Banks's piece, Adultery. As you read this piece, you can see that he's playing with the word right over and over again. And if you're reading it with rising and falling pitches, you can see that there's a very clear and interesting meaning here. But if you read it in a monotone way, you may not catch all of that. Okay, so let's try it out. Try reading the previous slide first in a monotone voice, so not altering your pitch in any way. Now, try reading it with a rising and falling pitch, depending on the context of the dialogue. Can you notice the difference? Without altering your pitch, the story loses a lot of its meaning. It becomes very unclear and difficult to understand. So that's something to keep in mind if you're giving speeches, if you are talking with your coworkers. Rising pitch is usually going to indicate a question, and a falling pitch is going to indicate certainty. This is why a lot of the media likes to make fun of millennials, which I'm a millennial and I don't really like this. But you can see this in a lot of TV shows. So you'll see a millennial person saying, I went out with my boyfriend and we got some dinner, and the dinner was like really good. But like, I was really offended because he didn't bring a bottle of wine. Okay, so that's enough of that. But in this sort of stereotype, you can see that the pitch is going up and up and up to where the person doesn't actually sound certain about the story that they're telling, which makes it really, really confusing for everybody that's listening in because you think, well, this is your life. Why aren't you sure? Okay, let's go on now to stress. So, stress gives emphasis to key parts of your message. When used correctly, it adds clarity and poignancy to what you're saying. Why is word stress important? Well, just like pitch, it can change the meaning of a word. It can impact the meaning of a word, a phrase, and it can really shape the overall tone of what you're trying to say. It's important to note that in English, we do not say each syllable with the same strength or force. This means that one part of a certain word is said louder and longer than other parts of the same word. Here's an example of it in action. So you could say, dessert is my favorite thing. So in that sense, you're thinking, oh, a tasty treat. So a tasty treat is your favorite thing. But if you put the stress in a different part of the word, you could say, desert's my favorite thing. That can confuse people into thinking that you're talking about a barren landscape. Luckily, there are some rules for word stress when you're reading aloud or having a conversation. A word only has one stress. Longer words might have a slight secondary stress, but never one that is equal to the first. We can only stress vowels, not consonants. And lastly, in sentences, we only place stress on content words like nouns, adjectives, verbs, adverbs, but not function words like modal verbs, auxiliary verbs, and most pronouns. If you think about it, it makes sense. So you're not going to be putting emphasis on the and but and little connecting words like that. You're going to be putting the emphasis on the action words, the things that emote and feel and express. Okay, so now try it out loud. Try reading the text below to see what you've learned so far. So utilize word stress, utilize pitch to read this piece below and see how it feels. Okay, next we're going to be talking about rhythm. Rhythm is how your words move in a speech. Good rhythm has a regular cadence and isn't choppy. So you want to make sure that people can listen along, they can follow the flow of what you're trying to say. Rhythm helps your audience follow along, it helps them predict what you're going to say as well. Without the proper use of rhythm, a speech might sound fragmented or unclear. A lot of political speeches are an example of how rhythm can help with clarity. So you see that rule of threes. A lot of politicians like to say things like, we must act quickly, we must advocate for all, we must be citizens of the world for the world. So by using this sense of rhythm in their speech, they're making everything sound more clear and they're making people believe in them and care about what they have to say. Okay, so try it out. Read the excerpt below and try to use a proper sense of rhythm. This is a excerpt from the speech of Charles de Gaulle from the Appeal of June 18th. Okay, now we're going to put it all together. This is going to be a projection or a inflection exercise, excuse me. So using the techniques we've covered, you'll complete an exercise that will help improve your inflection skills. In this next activity, you're going to be reading aloud, so try reading the whole excerpt before you do your reading aloud activity. Okay, so for this one, we have an excerpt from Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR. It's his first inaugural address. So try reading this one out loud and try using the components of rhythm and pitch and word stress to give poignancy to what you're sharing with the audience. I would also recommend trying it in a monotone voice as well, just so you can see the difference between the two. If you want to have even more fun, you can try doing it like a millennial stereotype and letting your pitch rise after a lot of these statements, and see how ineffective that becomes and how confusing it is for people to follow along. All right, well, great job. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I look forward to working with you guys again in the next video. Welcome back. Today we're going to be discussing projection. Projection is just a nice word for getting your voice up over the page and to the very back of the room, making sure your entire audience can understand you. A more formal definition might be the strength of speaking or singing whereby the voice is used loudly and clearly. It's a technique that you'll often see used by politicians or performers. It's a way of commanding a room. One of the first techniques in proper projection is breathing. Proper breathing for a speech would usually be diaphragmatic breathing, which is just a fancy way of saying belly breathing or breathing from your gut. Here's a more scientific explanation of what diaphragmatic breathing is, but if you're not too interested in that, all you need to know is that it's activating your muscles to get your voice out to the audience in a clear way. So why is diaphragmatic breathing important? It improves your voice quality, your vocal clarity, and it also helps to project confidence to your audience. Think of why the term mouth breather has become a pretty dang mean insult in recent years. Someone who's struggling to breathe can easily be seen as off-putting or lacking in confidence. It's kind of like that term sweaty palms, you know. You don't want to project this sense of being unsure of what you want to say. So it's not a very nice thing to say to somebody, but it is valid, I think, in certain senses. Okay, so what we're going to do now is try it out. Sit or lay down, put your hands on your stomach. As you breathe in, your hands should expand and rise with your stomach. When you exhale, your hands should return to the resting position. Inhale and exhale to a count of 5, increasing this number as you get better at it. Focus on your inhaling and exhaling, watching your hands rise and fall. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it. But this is a great way to try out diaphragmatic breathing and to really activate those belly muscles that you need in order to project to a larger audience. Another thing that impacts projection is your posture and body language. Slouching, fidgeting, and shifting can weaken your ability to project clearly. Also, boring body language gets boring results. If you don't look like you're interested, why would your audience want to be interested in you? Why is posture and body language important? Well, I know that there's a lot of statistics that get kicked around with body language, but we have some from the direct source here. So 55% of communication is body language, 38% is tone and voice, and 7% is the actual words spoken. However, we do need to account for context, relationships, patterns of movement, things like that. The way that you speak with your boss might be different than the way you interact with your wife, for example. It's still important to note, though, this is a really significant amount of the way that we're communicating with each other and understanding each other. So try it out. Stand up straight with your shoulders pulled back, hands at your sides. Say the following phrase out loud. The 33 thieves thought that they thrilled the throne throughout Thursday. Now try it again, but this time try slouching or fidgeting. Can you hear the difference? If not, try recording yourself and doing the exercise again. See if you can spot the differences between the one with effective upright posture and the one where you're slouching and moving around. Another technique that can help with projection is enunciation. Enunciation is when you pronounce each word clearly. You can see examples of this in lounge music and musicals, and it's something that it really depends on where you're from. So, for example, there's certain areas in the United States where enunciation is more clipped, like, for example, in Boston or New York. But there's also places where it might be stretched out a little bit more. So it's something to be aware of, and these enunciation activities can help you to reduce the impact of your regional accent as well. So why is enunciation important? Well, when you're giving speeches or leading meetings, it's critical that your audience understands the key facts and takeaways. It's also helpful for embarrassing mistakes like calling a gyro a gyro. So let's try it out. Try saying the classic tongue twister below as fast as you can. It's how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if woodchuck could chuck wood, and so on. If you can't get it the first time, don't worry. Slow down your speed and try enunciating every single word. As you improve, you can speed up again. This is a really good activity to keep trying every single day, and it's going to sharpen your ability to enunciate clearly. Let's try putting it all together. Using the techniques we've covered, you'll complete an exercise that will help you improve your projection skills. In this next activity, we'll be reading aloud. Take a moment to read the whole excerpt before you try reading it aloud. Also, imagine that you're in front of an audience. Visualize your voice lifting up over the page and sailing to the back of the room, making sure that every single person in the audience can understand you. When it feels natural, try lifting your gaze to meet the eyes of the imagined audience. This may seem hard at first, but when you do it properly, it's a way to engage your audience and to stay connected to them. Remember to keep your back erect and make good use of body language. Don't allow your body to become too rigid or too bouncy. Try to find the sweet spot. Okay, for the next assignment, what you're going to be doing is reading this assignment out loud, trying to utilize some of these projection techniques that we covered in class. I've included a speech from William Faulkner. It is his Nobel Prize acceptance speech. So go ahead and read this to yourself and then try reading it out loud using some of the techniques that we covered today. Okay, so that's the end of the projection lesson for today. Now, I know some of you might have noticed that I had a few tiny little ums slip through into our speech. That is something that you want to get better at with every single time you're speaking, but it's okay if they come in every now and again, as long as you're not stumbling and fumbling throughout your entire speech. You don't want to go crazy with perfectionism. You just want to make sure that you sound natural, clear, and easy to understand. All right, great job. I hope you enjoyed that assignment, and I look forward to watching your videos below. Hey everyone, today we're going to be talking about clarity and speed. Clarity is the ability to be easily understood. Clarity can be achieved by combining all other elements of elocution, so articulation, inflection, emphasis, projection, tone, and gesture. Let's start by looking at tone. Although pitch and tone are closely related, they're not quite the same thing. Tone refers to the consistent quality of your voice. Pitch is referring to the highness and lowness of a sound. It relates to frequency, and it's not really used to connote grammatical meaning. Whereas tone references a sound's pitch, quality, and strength. So it's taking pitch and it's adding a few other things to it, and it is used to connote grammatical meaning. Here's an example. I'm going to read a poem to you, or an excerpt from a poem, and you can see the use of tone throughout the piece. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So the tone of this excerpt is reflective and possibly even somber. We know the writer had to make a difficult choice. If this excerpt were to be read with a cheery voice, it would obstruct the overall meaning of the piece. It would make it very confusing. For example, if I said, I shall be reading this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a woods, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So by reading it with that kind of a tone, it's making it seem like it's more of an uplifting piece, and it's really taking away the uncertainty and the reflectiveness that the author is experiencing here. Okay, so try it out. Try reading the previous slide in a giddy voice, then try reading it in your natural tone of voice. Finally, try it one more time, but this time using a reflective tone, so slowing down and really placing emphasis on the words that carry a lot of meaning. Can you notice the difference? Does it feel different to read it in each of those different tones? I hope so. Okay, now let's move on to pacing. Pacing is essential in giving a clear speech, or even just talking to a friend in a way that they can understand you. Pacing allows listeners to follow along and to process what you're saying. Good pacing is also going to give space for people to think and respond at the same time as actively listening to you. Having the right pacing demonstrates confidence, and it helps your audience to understand and relate to you in your speech. If you speak too quickly, your audience will be overwhelmed and they're going to feel anxious. They're going to get information overload and kind of not care anymore. If you speak too slowly, you'll disengage your audience. They'll become bored. They'll get sick of hearing the tone of your voice. So you want to find that sweet spot in the middle. Try it out. Try reading the text below as fast as you can. When you finish, try it again, this time using proper pacing. If you're feeling especially ambitious, you can try it one more time using a very slow and boring pace. Then you can find what the sweet spot is for you in your own tone of voice and your own abilities as a speaker. And that's what you want to strive for every time that you're talking to other people, every time that you're giving a speech. You want to find that nice middle section, the sweet spot, where people can both follow along but not get bored. Okay, the next topic we'll cover is gesture. Gesture reaffirms and emphasizes your talking points. When it's used properly, as with pacing, you can use it to help your readers follow along and understand you, but you also have to find the sweet spot, right? So you don't want your hands to be waving like a crazy person, but you also don't want to be standing there like a stick man. Now more than ever, people cannot focus on static images. We're used to things in motion. We're used to live streams and Instagram and activity. So we rely on body language to understand important moments and details. Gesture can imply that something is serious or lighthearted. Gesture helps listeners to actively listen and to be engaged. You can see it in action below. Looking at this clip of former President Obama, you can see that he is using his gestures to kind of place emphasis on certain parts of his speech. You don't actually have to hear him saying anything. You can just tell through the gestures that what he's saying is important. Now, do you notice how his hand movements complement his pauses? They're kind of lifting up and giving weight to these important moments here. Let's try putting it all together. So for the final project, you're going to record yourself giving a speech. It can be a famous speech like any of the ones you've practiced in this course so far, or it can be one that you've written yourself. Utilize everything you've learned about elocution to give an excellent oration. Go ahead and if you're feeling brave, share it with the class below. It's always wonderful to see other people's growth and to see what you've created. Okay, so I would recommend making the speech 1 to 5 minutes long. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It can be why cats are the best animal or, where I'd like to travel one day. But I want you to practice using these tips and tricks to make sure that your speech is understandable, make sure that you're connecting with your audience, and make sure that people have a reason to care about what you're saying. All right, I hope you found this video helpful. We'll be exploring some more elocution techniques and tips and tricks in the last video, and I look forward to working with you all soon. Congratulations, you've made it to the final video of the course. In this last video, we're going to be covering some enunciation exercises that can help you to refine your speech and really pronounce every single word the best way possible. I encourage you to come back to this video often and keep practicing these tongue twisters. They are an incredible way to reduce your accent, to sharpen your ability to speak clearly, and also they're a lot of fun. We're going to go through, and I hope that you'll be patient with me as I say them. I do these pretty much every day, and I do them all the time with my students, but that doesn't mean that I'm perfect. So I'm going to be saying them. I might slip up every now and again, but I hope you'll have a good laugh with me. And I hope that you're practicing along with me at home. Okay, let's begin. A. Around the rugged rocks, the ragged rascal ran. B. Big black bug bit a big black bear, and the big black bear bled black blood. C. Can I cook a proper cup of coffee in a copper coffee pot? D. Don't doubt the doorbell, but differ with the doorknob. E. 8 gray geese in a green field grazing. F. Fine white vinegar with veal. G. Grab the groundhog from the glazed grass. H. High roller, low roller, low roller. I. Inexplicably mimicking him hiccuping. J. Jingle jungle jangle joker. K. Knit kilts for nasty cold nights. L. Little Lucky Luke likes lakes, lucky little Luke likes licking lakes. M. Monkeys make Monopoly monotonous. N. The next nest will not necessarily be next to nothing. O. Octopi occupy a porcupine's mind. P. Peter Prangle, the prickly pear picker, picked 3 perfectly prickly pears. Q. Queen Catherine wakes the cat, and the cat quietly cries. R. Roberta ran rings around the Roman ruins. S. Some sunshine, do you shun sunshine? I'm going to do that one again because I think I messed it up a little bit. Some shun sunshine, do you shun sunshine? This one is one of the hardest ones to do, so if you master this, please record it and share it below. I would love to see it. Some shun sunshine, do you shun sunshine? All right, I think we got it, guys. T. The 33 thieves thought that they thrilled the throne throughout Thursday. U. Unique New York, unique New York, unique New York. This one is fun to say 3 times fast. V. Venti, grande, tall, very, grand words for large, medium, and small. Let's do that one again. Venti, grand, tall, very grand words for large, medium, and small. That sounds a little bit better. W. Will's wetsuit is round and wet and rough and wide and ready to go on a watery ride. X. Xylophones exist, or so existentialists insist. Y. Yoda met a Yeti on the plains of Serengeti. Z. Zoologists illogically love to read astrology. All right, great job. You made it to the end. If any of those were really hard, and I'm sure they were, go back and do it again. Keep trying and keep practicing. It's a really fun way to improve your enunciation, and it's also super fun to do with friends. See who can get it correct and see who can do it the fastest. I hope you all have enjoyed this course. Please feel welcome to share any comments, questions, suggestions below. I'm always looking to engage you guys and to help you become better public speakers. So I hope you enjoyed everything, and I look forward to looking at your videos and reading your comments below. Bye, everyone.